All right, it's tough to hear that, but we're learning a lot about him by watching it. Phyllis Collins, the idea that again we've talked about this, but his complete difference between that video and that guy at the defense table is it's been 8 years, but it's only been 8 years.
Yeah, again, I don't think this is a good point for the defense, the physical appearance. But what I was just thinking here, watching this, maybe the defense should argue that look at how willing he was to speak to the police. I mean, this is his second interview now. I don't know if there were others. I guess we'll hear about that. But he also testified in this John Doe hearing that he did not have to testify at. And my understanding is he did not have an attorney. Up until he was actually finally arrested. Then he got an attorney. But maybe the defense should argue, look how willing he is to talk. He had nothing to hide.
Yeah, that's a great point, because you could turn it around. He wasn't maybe the guy that was pushing investigators to find his wife, but on the other hand, when they said, come on in, he said, sure, what time? I'll be there after work. Obviously, he's got his work clothes on. And if it had been different, we'd have known about it. It would have been brought up in the open. It would have been brought up with this witness already. He was difficult to get a hold of. So that's a very good point. He was there. He answering his questions as best to his ability. He just doesn't know where his wife is. And to that point, isn't this, I know you're, and I'm starting to agree with you, you think that the prosecution is looking good and it's looking bad for the defense. But the bottom line here is, you still have, you don't have a body, you don't have a crime scene, and you have this statement that the missing person said to family members, you're not going to find me.
Right. Well, Ted, actually, it's interesting. I saw a statistic recently that indicated that murder trials with no body actually have a higher success rate than murder trials with a body, which is a little bit counterintuitive. But you've just got an overwhelming amount of circumstantial evidence. And I think probably some of your viewers have maybe gotten a little bored throughout some of the testimony because there's just been so much of it. And a lot of the witnesses have said the same thing. But of course, they're hoping that at the end of the day, there will be no other conclusion that a reasonable jury could find other than guilty, because there's just so much overwhelming circumstantial evidence. And in a case like this, you don't have to worry about any arguments of tampering with evidence or anything like that, because you really don't have a whole lot of forensic evidence.
They are repeating themselves, repeating this theme with all of these witnesses. But to your point, what they're doing is they're allowing jurors to let it sink in and think about it and be forced to let it sink in over days. If this was a 3-day trial, there's no way they win it, right? Because even though the actual information these jurors are getting from all of these witnesses is the same as the first 3 to testify, this is a strategy to keep them thinking about the alternative. Who else did it, and how would this woman, of all people, been able to pull off this incredibly difficult act, and that is to hide your own body when you kill yourself.
Right. And I think they've done a good job of the order of the witnesses too. You know, you want to build your story and get people really interested and thinking about a lot of things. And I'm sure a lot of the jurors were wondering, well, how would he have done it? You know, and now they're starting to hear about the opportunity that he had and the lack of the opportunity that she had, Victoria, to plan and execute her own suicide without anyone finding her body. So I think the timing of the witnesses has been really well done.
And the fact that, you know, in a typical murder case, you've got the outside world, you know, that, hey, you never know what she had. Well, she didn't even have very many friends to communicate. Even her own family, her daughters didn't communicate with her.
Right. And remember, it's a beyond a reasonable doubt standard, right? What's reasonable? You know, it's not the alien standard, beyond all doubt. When you see the closing arguments, I'm sure the state's going to do a really, really good job on arguing reasonable doubt.
And saying that there's no other scenario. You tell me what happened to Victoria Prokopovitz. We're telling you he did it, and he did have an opportunity. And I think the testimony that you just referred to from last week is key, that he had opportunity that no one else did. I mean, who has opportunity to basically a dumping ground that is toxic, it's sealed, he's got a key to this place? I mean, this is a rare situation that obviously they're going to have to pursue, and they will hammer home on the close. Judge Collins, thanks again for your insight and your knowledge helping us through this. It's got me thinking. Things are you saying? I think it's got all our viewers as well. We appreciate your time on this Monday, and we appreciate your time watching this trial. It's unfolding very slowly, but that is by design, by the state of Wisconsin, because they want the jurors to come up with that conclusion. Who else could have done it? We'll see if it works as we proceed. We're going to step aside as we approach the top of the hour. When we return, Julie Grant will be here. We'll hear more, hopefully, from that interrogation and have much more testimony when we return. Stay with us.